Welcome back. In part 5, we will look at productivity, right? Because as we try to understand the potential GDP in different countries, we want to look at the labor and productivity, right? And for this, we would study three factors. The first one is investment made by firms. Second, the type of innovations. And the third, role of government, right? So over these years, what we find is that productivity as measured by real output per hours, right? We got a high of 5.5%, and then we are now at about 1.3, 1.5, right? So the other trend to observe is that we have this decline over this period, okay, right? When we invest in a company, we would ideally like the company to plow back the earnings and use the available funds to invest in new machines, new technology, and look for new markets, right? However, the strange thing is that the shareholder behavior is very different from this idealistic view, right? The research done by Professor Farmer and Professor French, right, revealed that when we look at the companies with the highest asset growth, right, we see that their annualized return is a lot lower than companies with the lowest asset growth, right? So the difference is about 2%, right? But this 2% compounded over a long period, right, would show you that the orange line here, right, companies with lowest asset growth, right, the returns to shareholder has been a lot higher than the returns, right, to companies with the highest asset growth, right? So obviously, a part of this is because of technology companies, right, growth companies. At the same time, it also would support the idea that for a CEO to announce that they're going to invest in a new enterprise and new factories, and they will not see any result until 8 or 10 years time, right? Compared to another CEO of the peer who say that, well, instead of building new factories, we are going to increase our dividend and we are going to increase share buyback, right? So from that simple two scenarios, you can see how shareholders would react more positively to company B, right, because they are paying more dividend, they're buying back stocks, right, compared to company A, which while it's good, they're investing, but who knows what will happen in 5, 8 years from now, right? And that might be too risky. So this kind of behavior does not really encourage, right, CEO to want to invest aggressively, right? Okay, because the risk too far out in the future is probably something that the shareholders would not welcome. Right? So we see this trend, right, since the 1960s, right? Net capital formation has been coming down. Right? This is investment in new machines, investment in new technology, investment in factories and all this, right? Meanwhile, the net share buyback has been rising steadily, right? So what does this do to productivity, right? What does it do to productivity? That means that there are now less money available to boost productivity, right? When we look at the type of innovation over the years, right, we can look at a few pictures from history. Right, here is a picture of the Brooklyn Bridge, right? So when we have bridges all around the world, this certainly improved productivity a lot. Instead of waiting for your goods to get into the ferry and wait for the ferry to get full and cross the river and unload. Here you just have the truck, right, to drive, or the horse buggy, right, to drive across the bridge. Right? A lot faster, and therefore more productive. Right? Then we have the farming technology, right? And this free up the young people. Instead of farming, they now work in factories where they earn more and they are more productive. Right? Cars, obviously, right, is a big improvement. Yes, this car would destroy the horse and buggy industry. Right? There are less people needed to breed horses. There are less people needed to drive the horse buggy. But the new jobs that's created by the car industry, right, certainly overwhelm the loss in jobs in the horse and buggy industry, right? And this in turn would spin out different newer industry and newer innovation, because from this, right, we can see how it create the tire industry, and it support and grow the light industry and the glass industry and so on. Right? With the invention of the motor car, right, and the interstate highway, this also help productivity because people move out from the city and they live in the suburb, so that the city becomes less crowded, right? And when we move to the suburb, it opens up a new area, and that new area in turn, right, create more jobs, right? And the canned food, right? Canned food also allow people to not spend too much time, like having to rush to the market before it closes to buy the fresh meat, fresh vegetable, right? Here you have choices, right? You can buy the canned food and you can eat whenever you feel like it. Right? Air conditioners, extremely important, right? In summer, in Europe and elsewhere, when it's in summer, it's just too hot to work. Right? But when we have an air conditioner, it makes life a lot better, and that also help productivity. Right? Airplanes, of course, right? Airplanes, you don't have to be in a boat or ship for 2 months to get from America to Asia, right? Now you fly there in a matter of 13, 15 hours. Okay? Right? So having looked at the past, right, now we ask the question, what are the great innovations today? By great innovation, I'm talking about ideas that affect the lives of a large population, and something that create the new tycoons of today, just like in the past, right, they created the Henry Ford dynasty, right? And here we look at this and say, what are the champions, right? Okay, so we have things like Uber and Airbnb, right? Are these really, really innovations that are as powerful as the motor car and the airplane? Many people would argue not, because these are what we call process innovation, right? In the case of Uber, yes, it is a major disruption to the hotel industry. True. But for the user, it is still solving the need for a place to sleep at night. Right? Does this change productivity significantly? The answer is no. Right? Okay. Then the Uber, right? Uber is about getting from A to B. Right? Yes, it destroyed the taxi industry, but again, in terms of solving the customer's need, It is about getting from place A to place B, right? It does not change productivity very much, if at all, right? Then we have things like computer games, right? Computer games. One may argue that yes, it may be entertaining, and yes, it may help the mind to think actively, right? But to a large extent, they do not really help somebody to be more productive in the work. Right? In fact, if people would be playing these games during office hours, then we're talking about taking away from productivity. Facebook, right? Facebook, a lot of reports showing that people who spend too much time on Facebook, they tend to get depressed. Right? Why? Because when they look at Facebook, they see their friends wearing the latest clothes, having the latest shoes, and having vacations, right? And they themselves are just sitting at home and looking at other people being very, very happy. So uh, when when someone see other people being very, very happy, somehow they feel sad, right? Okay, so when we look at this major disruption now, one may argue that it does not add to productivity. If anything, it may take away from productivity. Right? In any case, innovation will continue. It's important then to think through this way. As they destroy old jobs, will they create new jobs? Right? And I'm talking about the ripple effect of disruption. Is it narrow or is it broad? Right? And for this, it's good to contrast the motor car industry replacing the horse and buggy, and the Airbnb disrupting the hotel industry, right? So when you look at these two contrasts, right, then you can see that what we want would be this type of disruption, right? Where yes, they destroy the old jobs, but they also create a lot more new jobs, right? And make the uh, society more productive, right? So we are going to continue to observe what's happening in the medical industry, because this spending here is 17% of GDP. 3D printing, 3D printing was hot for a period. It has come off now, and perhaps uh, as it gain acceptance again, and we have economy of scale, 3D printing could help society to be more productive, right? Robots, drones, right? So, so this would be replacing some of the work that humans are doing. Uh, this can be good because if they replace a human in very dangerous situation, this can be productive, right? Electric cars, right? Driverless cars and trucks, right? Well, yes, this would destroy the old cars that use the fuel, the gas, and all this. But the question then is, will this create, right, a lot more spin-off in new industries, right? Big data, blockchain, right? Okay. Again, we want to observe and see how this is going to help society. Okay. All right. Then the same thing goes with AI, AR, and virtual reality. Then the third factor that affect productivity is the role of government. Right? So here we see that the jobs for in the manufacturing sector stabilize and then drop sharply, right? And the same time, the government jobs have increased steadily over the years, right? So the question then is that, is this increase in government jobs good or bad for productivity? Well, it depends, right? It depends. Right? It depends on whether these government workers are regulators or facilitators, right? If you have more and more people trying to regulate the private sector, right? You have 3% watching, 1% working, or worse still, you have another 2% trying to stop that 1% from doing any work, right? Then the society will be less productive, right? Ideally, we want government workers to support the private sector, right? Help to create economy of scale, right? A good example would be the transition from uh, the the fuel or the petrol cars to the electric cars, right? For electric cars, how come we are not there yet? Well, the answer is because there's not enough electric car charging machine. And when you ask how come there's not enough the car charging station, the answer is there's not enough electric cars on the road to justify the investment, right? So to the extent the government can be the facilitator, that can help create the economy of scale very quickly by either offering tax incentive or guidance to the industry, then they would be helping to increase the productivity in the country. Well, we will stop here.